Welcome back, brave adventurers. Eric's UK here with another vid. This one is inspired by a comment from one of my subscribers, Nozza2002, who in a comment to my previous video asked about a video topic of who was the biggest pain in the arse player I've ever had, which I thought was quite an interesting idea, and I had a couple of days to think about it. Now, I'm very lucky in that in all my years of gaming, I've never really had a serious pain in the arse player. I've had people who were OTT optimizers, especially in D20 systems, and I've had, might be the same person, someone who was an exceedingly unbending rules lawyer. But they weren't. I've never had anyone who was that bad, I'll be honest. And I've never had anybody who pushed the boundaries so badly. But there are two people who I will go so far to say were a pain in the arse. That's how we say it here in Britain, arse. I'm not saying this in a negative light, because we actually had a lot of good fun with these guys, and in a way I do sort of miss them. The first one was a young chap named AD, that was his nickname. He and his brother were part of the first ever AD&D second edition group that I was with. I think I've mentioned in a video very long time ago that I found this group through an ad in a newsagent window. Someone looking for AD&D players in the area. And I never actually met anybody until the first session. I was their DM. No one else was experienced with it. And being a DM is quite happily the role I like to play a lot of the time. So AD and his brother were one of the few people there. And they were a bit odd. Odd in a good way, but odd. And they played with us for a couple of years, until sort of like real life things kind of got in the way, as I shall explain shortly. Basically, his brother Chris was perfectly fine. Very wallflowery a little bit, but you know, it was nice. But his brother AD, the first problem that we had with him was that he was a cheat with his dice. He would roll his d20, and then as he rolled it, he would move his hand along to cup the dice, so only he could see what was rolled on the d20. And then he would tell you what he'd got, and then he'd pick the dice up. Or, if it wasn't a roll he liked, the hand would keep going and knock the dice off the table, and he'd have to roll it again cupped, until we started realising what he was doing, which didn't take long at all. And we'd say to him, right, you can't cup your hand, you need to roll the dice so we can see it. And once he cottoned onto that, then fine, he stopped doing it. But yeah, he was a pain. The real issues was he was, well, at the time I was 17, 18, and I think he was 15 or 16. And he was a little immature at the time. He did get better over the next couple of years, but and he was certainly one of those sort of players that wants, I don't know whether I'd say he wanted to be the centre of attention, but he would often go off and do silly things himself. Two instances that came to mind when I was thinking about all this was, well, firstly, the party, through whatever they'd been doing, had found an item called an iron flask, which was kind of like a genie bottle. Something could be put in the jar and it would be conscious and awake, but it was in a kind of stasis. It didn't need to eat or drink or anything like that. And it could stay in there for centuries, millennia, whatever, until somebody opens the jar. At which point, that's the sound effect, it pops out. They found one of these, and walking along, AD decides he's going to open the jar because he wants to know what's in it, knowing full well that they have no control over what's in it, And it could be anything from a badger up to a Balor, you know, or a Titan or something. And whatever it is, you know it's going to be pretty pissed about being stuck in a jar for however long. Well, it turns out the contents of said iron flask was a shadow dragon. Which, if you don't know, you're not a D&D sort of person. Shadow dragons are dragons native to the plane of shadow, who have a breath weapon, especially in 2nd edition, that drains levels. By the time this party of 12 or 13th level characters finally managed to kill the dragon, they were like 6th or 7th level again. Yeah, they were not, the players were not a happy bunny with him. And it really put the I can't remember what the campaign was, but it did set it back something chronic, because now we had to suddenly readjust everything for the fact that they were almost to the right levels to be facing the big bads and everything. And then it's like, And the other thing that I remember him doing, and this sort of thing doesn't go down well with me, with players, I've got to be honest. We were playing, one of the other guys had taken over, and I think it was a Ravenloft diversion. A few sessions in the shadow plane of Gothic horror to take us away from whatever we were doing elsewhere and give us a change of pace. And we were investigating a mystery, disappearances of young men, something like that. And we learned in the end that there was, in this town, an entity or a creature called a Red Widow, which was like a shape-shifting spider thing. In its natural form, it's kind of like part woman, part spider, Drider or something. I can't really remember. I think it was only a creature that existed in 2nd edition. But in its human form, it looked like a stunningly beautiful woman. And it didn't take us long to go, hang on, this town's got a red light district. Where else is a Red Widow going to be? So we figure she's going to be a prostitute, and we weren't wrong. But AD decided that he was going off to investigate this himself, by himself. Passing notes under the table, off he goes. By the time we realise what he's done and we burst in there and rescue him, half his face is palsied, he's had his fluids drained from him, and not in a pleasant way. And he was pretty much stuffed for the rest of the campaign, because it's like, well, we're not paying for you to have any restoration type magics. You brought this on yourself, you silly bugger. And he used to do things like that. He used to really get on people's nerves. The whole thing eventually came to an end with AD when, suddenly really annoyed by his brother for whatever reason, I forget what, he basically leant across the table and punched him in the face. And shortly after that, he was unpleasantly perhaps told not to come back. And it did cause some issues with various members of the group, and that was the last time I ever saw it. In fact, I saw his brother a few weeks ago. He came into where I worked to buy some stuff, and we had a quick chat. But apparently, AD turned out he moved on to be a grocer somewhere up north. But the other player in question I'm still in contact with, and was again part of our 2nd edition D&D group, although way after the time of AD and his brother. His name was Mark. I call him Mark 1 because I've got various marks in my gaming notebook. And he had this thing for playing rogues. It's all he ever wanted to play. Thieves. Very, very odd. That's all he ever played. And I mentioned him in RPG A Day last year on at least one, maybe two videos. He was another one that would always do what he wanted. He was a really nice guy away from the game. He was a great chap in real life. But in the game, he would go off and he would do stupid things. He went through so many characters. I remember instances like there was we were playing a game. I think Gary was running it, and there was this giant. I think it was like an ape statue or something like that. Very typical sort of D&D sort of thing with gems for eyes. So he decides to climb up this statue by himself and prize the gem out, because that's what a rogue does. And the statue basically comes out and goes smack and killed him. And it's like, well, this is like the third time something like that has happened to you in your gaming career. Maybe you should try something different. Did he? No. He would do things like, I remember another incident, he found a ring that shrunk him, but you couldn't take the ring off. Little barbs came out and it was kind of a cursed ring. You were forced to stay that size. So he gets a knife out, he cuts his finger off, he comes back to full size, and then we find that you have to use the shrinking ring to get further in the dungeon, and he had to do it all over again. And things like that. And I actually remember his very first session. Again, I think I mentioned this in RPG Day. His first ever session, the party were already like 9th level or something like that, and he joined. So he didn't get the benefit of playing from first edition, although he knew of role playing games. And his first ever encounter involved a magma golem, which he decided to grapple, which did not end well. But the things that really used to really wind us up was the fact that he would go off and he would do things without talking to the rest of the party. And at one point, our friend Gary had to sit him down and go, look, realistically, if you were this person in our group of friends, our adventuring party, we'd tell you to sod off, because you're putting yourself and us at risk. And we're supposed to work together to achieve the goals of the scenario or the campaign or whatever, and you're not doing that. And he did tone himself down a little bit, but he didn't change enough. He was the sort of person that, instead of telling you what he was going to do, he would scribble notes and he'd pass notes to the DM, which is something I don't like anymore. I didn't like it really back then. I think you're supposed to be team players. That's at the table and in the game. And he would go off and he'd do things. And unfortunately, I think he would inadvertently get punished for it in game. But if you're going to go off on your own and do stupid things, you're going to get the punishment. But he also was one of those players who came up with what would really be cool ideas, but they don't work. I ran a Forgotten Realms campaign, mid 90s, something like that, and he decided he's going to take a break from playing a rogue, so he played a ninja. So he was from character and he's playing this ninja. Anyway, he comes to me with this character idea. He says, right, we're not playing in character, so I've been exiled from my clan, and I've come all this way, blah blah blah. And he comes up with this really cool background, and then decides that he wants to have two fellow clan members who decided to sort of leave with him. They would never interact with the party. They would always just be there. It's like, well, why? This story is supposed to be about you. And he's like, well, no, because if I need something doing and I'm not supposed to leave the party, and I'm like, yeah, but the whole point is you're living vicariously through your character, not through these people. And he kept going, and he kept going. And he wanted these two bots. And he's like, yeah, but how's it work in combat? Oh, they'll help out. How are they going to help out if if the other party members don't know they're there? And in the end, I said to him, look, we'll try it. If it doesn't work, then these two NPCs are going to have to go away. But I control them, not you. And within like 4 sessions, maybe 5, I basically said, look, this isn't working. And he did kind of argue it a little bit, but I think he realised that it wasn't a good move, because he was just taking that, I want to do my own thing, and trying to find a loophole in how to do it. He was a really good role player. I can't fault him for how he played his rogues and things, but he wasn't a team player. And unfortunately, I think in whatever you do, unless you've got something really cool in mind, and that's actually just given me an idea for another vid. Unless you've got something really cool in mind, you need to be a team player in things like D&D or whatever. Certain games like Vampire, whatever, I kind of get you are all on your own. Everybody else is just there for your use, your convenience. But in a role-playing game that's like D&D, Star Wars, whatever, you are there together, to work together, to tell the story together, and achieve the goals together. You know, if someone's going to sneak off ahead, that should be part of the party decision, not yours. And unfortunately, I think with these two particular players, the fact that they would often do things like that was what made them a pain in the arse. Anyway, that's what I sort of thought of for these guys. I hope you found it an interesting topic. I'd be interested to see who your pain in the arse players were, and put them in the comments down below. Or do a video response. That'd be cool. Hit that subscribe button. I don't normally say that, but I'm going to start doing it now. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next vid. Until next time, take care, guys. Good gaming.